Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Navigating New Loans and Grants, What You Need to Know. We have a couple of guest speakers with us today. The business liaison, Deborah Glickman from the city of Palm Desert is with us today, presenting on the new city grants and loans. And then, of course, we have our Lisa Napolitano from the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, and she will be talking to us about some different changes that are going on in relation to the California grants, etc. So let us begin with Deborah Glickman. I wonder if you can give us your presentation. Now, the audience, you are all muted. If you do come up with any questions during the presentations, I ask that you kindly put them in the chat box, and after the speaker has finished, we will go to the chat box to try to get those questions answered. Now, everybody's video is off and your sound should be off as well if you are not speaking. So thank you for joining us. And Deborah, would you please take it away?
Yes, I'm happy to. I'm going to ask Lisa if she can unshare her screen so I can switch over to share my screen. Thank you. I want to wish everyone a good morning, and it's nice to see everyone. I'm going to do a brief presentation on some of the things going on in the city of Palm Desert in terms of funding and a couple of other activities that we have. And then I've been saying that I'm the warm-up act, and I will send it on over to Lisa, who is someone I naturally send people over to all of the time. So we're a good tag team duo here. The main source of funding that the city has available right now is our emergency business relief loan. That loan was approved by the City Council on December 22nd. It's a $500,000 allocation that is available to the businesses that are affected by the December 7th state mandated regional stay-at-home orders. So that's really restaurants that could no longer serve outside or inside, personal care, hair care, nails, massage. So it's specific to those categories. It's a $5,000 forgivable loan, which means if you satisfy certain criteria, which are pretty straightforward, that criteria is that you comply with the stay-at-home orders, as well as stay in good standing, basically. If you do so, then the business does so, then the $5,000 will be forgivable and it will revert to a grant. So it's forgivable loans are pretty good deals, and we'll hear a little bit more about those. The loan is on a first come, first served basis. We started accepting applications on December 24th, and we will close the application window on January 11th. At the end of the presentation, I have a link to the city's Biz Support website, which will have, and I'll put the link in the chat box too, it has the application on there. It's a very simple application, a one-pager. You fill it out, scan it, take a picture of it, however you can get it to us, get it to the city. We're looking for a digital submission, and that will be to our business hotline email address, which is also on the last slide here. So I'll put all that information also in the chat box. At the City Council meeting on January 14th at 4 p.m., the City Council will also be looking at some other potential funding sources. So this is what we have available right now. I will let you know that it has been quite popular. So I encourage everyone to reach out if you have any questions and to get your applications in as soon as you can. And like I said, I'll get you the information on how to do that. We have a couple of other initiatives going on, straying slightly from the topic, but I really want to make sure everyone knows about it. The Coachella Valley Economic Partnership secured literally a million masks for the Coachella Valley for the cities to give away. So we have more than masks. We have masks, face shields, and half-liter bottles of hand sanitizer that are free for Palm Desert businesses. With that, we've opened a distribution point that's open Monday through Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that is at the Palm Desert Community Center. So if you know where City Hall is, if you know where the YMCA is, it's in our same parking lot across from the YMCA. And all you do, it's contactless. So I really encourage people, wear a mask, don't get out of your car. We have a staff person there who will bring your we'll bring the PPE to you, as well as get a little bit of information, including a business card, or we have a form you can fill out giving us your address, your business address. We're looking to track what type of businesses are picking up, as well as get as much of this PPE out as possible. If you are a business that is currently closed due to the stay-at-home orders, I still encourage you to come pick up your PPE. You will need it at some point, and you might as well have it on hand. Another initiative that was started was our Step Up to the Table Palm Desert. And oops, there we go. There's my nice graphic for that. Step Up to the Table Palm Desert is a challenge to help our restaurants. It is a hashtag for social media where people are challenged. If you remember the ice bucket challenge that went around a few years ago, you challenge someone to, you buy a gift card, you take a picture or a video of you with the gift card at a restaurant, or you pick up a meal at a restaurant, and you put that on social media with the hashtag Step Up to the Table Palm Desert, and you tag, I believe it's 3 other people at least, to challenge them to do the same. So it's a really good way. It started in Orange County, but it's gotten a lot of traction. It's a great way to help our businesses. It says table, definitely it's for our restaurants, but I definitely think you can use this with the Chamber's EFD gift card, as well as any other businesses that have services that are open now, or gift cards that you can purchase. It's a way to help our community for the future. So that's another initiative we have going. That's a general overview of the main items of support that the city has right now, but what we always have is ongoing support for our businesses. My title is Business Advocate. I am here for you. If you have any questions, any concerns, anything I can help you with, this is my email address, my phone number, and you can call or email at any time. We also have a business hotline, which it's a general number and email address for our economic development department. Most of the time I'll be answering those anyway, so you can go directly to my email or phone number if you like, as well as the last line here is our pdbizsupport.com. That is our website that is specific to our economic development department. That has a whole section of business resources that includes a lot of the information that Lisa's going to talk about, as well as the information and the link to the application for the grant that the city currently has available, and any other initiatives that the city takes on will go on to that website. So we are here for you. We are here to answer questions, help you with your needs, and please feel free to reach out. That's absolutely what I'm here for. So thank you all, and I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. I will stop sharing my screen. Are there any questions?
There are no questions
Okay.
in the chat box at this time.
Excellent. I'll be here through the meeting, so if you think of any, let me know.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
My pleasure.
So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
And hear me. Okay, great. So welcome everybody. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to take you through what's available to your business right now, when and how you can apply, new rules for EIDL and PPP and taxes. And I just want to put a caveat out there. Each one of these topics has so many details, there would be no way I could tell you everything about it. I'm trying to pick and choose carefully to give you an overview and a sense for where you might stand vis-a-vis all these different programs I'm going to platform. But honestly, the people I work with at SBDC, we're available on a one-to-one basis to review how everything I'm going to talk about today applies to you specifically, because there's a lot of fine print beneath the headers and the bullets. And it takes sometimes a little bit of investigation to know if you meet all the qualifications or to understand the ramifications of taking on a grant or a loan. So I want to make sure that I give you enough to wrap your head around everything and get prepared. But just know that I can't possibly tell you everything. And there's some things that are still unknown. And I will be very, very honest and specific about what's not known and guidance we're waiting for. So with that, we just heard from Deborah Glickman. Thanks for the update, Deborah. Always a pleasure to work hand in hand with you to help the businesses in Palm Desert. So a little pitch for SBDC, because my face pops up a lot when loans and grants come out, and a lot of businesses in the area seek out help from SBDC to access loans and grants, but that's not the only thing that we do. We help in your success 24/7 all year round. And I just wanted to give you a list of all the kinds of things we work with businesses on at no cost to you, just so that when the fury of the money and the grants dies down and you take a look at your business, consider using SBDC as a sounding board or another opinion or someone other than your family that you can go to and say, does this idea make sense? Can you help me think this through? We deal with so many different areas of business operations and practices. We have hundreds of training workshops that are on every conceivable topic. They're all at no cost. And there's 100 people like me with different types of expertise available to work with you. So that's my SBDC pitch for when there aren't loans and grants to be accessed. I hope you'll consider using us as a resource for your business. So let's start with the California Relief Grant, because not only is it really front of mind because it's the newest thing that opened, but it's been a challenge for many of you. So I'm going to go on record up front and say, I know all about the glitches. I know all about the difficulty in the technology. Let me just run through the basic eligibility requirements. You've got to have at least $1,000 in revenue that you can show in 2019. Sounds silly, but they just want to make sure you actually had sales. And you can't have had more than 2.5 million. So this is for really, truly small businesses. You have to have a physical address in California for the business. Now they are allowing the 501c3 and 501c6 nonprofits to apply for this, as long as it's not a religious entity and they don't do more than 20% of their activity in the lobbying space. A question that comes up numerous times for me in the last couple of weeks is, I own more than one business. Can I apply for more than one loan? The answer is no, but there's another little bit in the fine print here. Not only can you only apply for one of your businesses, you are required to apply for the business that had the largest revenue in 2019, with the assumption that it's within the range of acceptability. So between 1,000 and 2.5 million. But if you have more than one business, you have to apply for the one with the largest revenue. And some people have wanted to apply for a business they think had bigger damage or will hit more of the priority check boxes in terms of grant selection. You're really not able to do that. You've got to apply for the business that has the largest revenue. So I just want to point that one out. There's not many disqualifiers for this grant. It's kind of the usual stuff you've seen before: sex-related business, criminal history of the owners, financial companies. If you file a Schedule C on your personal tax return, which means maybe you're a landlord, you have commercial real estate, and also if you're an investment company. So there's some fine print here, but I would gather that most small businesses that I work with would qualify for this loan to apply. Now, like I said earlier, there's some links in this presentation. We'll give you the PPT so that you don't have to write them down and you have them. There's the main website for the grant. It's quite informative, a lot of FAQs that are well thought through and answered. There's a lot of information on there. There's also a direct link to SBDC's partner page for the grant. Let me just say that when you go into the grant and you have a list of partners you can pick from, they're all the same. It was an attempt to raise exposure in the small business community for all the different entities that are out there to help you. It really doesn't change your experience with the technology or with the application process. So SBDC's link is listed here, but if you were a little confused when you saw all those partners, as many people were, it really doesn't matter which partner you pick. By now, you're probably well aware of the amounts of the grants and who's eligible for what, but I've listed them here. It's a $5,000, $15,000, or $25,000 grant based on gross sales in 2019. The deadline has been shifted to January 13th due to technical issues. That's good. They're going to fix the technology. Word I got from our regional director 2 nights ago was that today the portal and the login should be working. If you're already in the system applying, you probably got an email last night. I did. giving me a heads up that today you should be able to log in and you should be getting your password if you didn't get your password yet, and being able to go in and complete the application. Most small businesses I've been helping one-to-one got stuck somewhere in the middle of the application and are panicked that they haven't been able to get back in to finish entering the data, let alone upload the documents. Don't panic. They know this, and they're giving more time to enable the portal to be fixed and to collect the information from you. There was a two-part plan to upload documents. It was going to be do the online application, upload your 2019 return and a photo ID. There's word that maybe they're not going to have any uploads at this stage. We're not 100% sure. Be prepared for it to be either way. Maybe they're going to ask for these uploads now, but if they give you a message saying, don't worry, if you get to stage 2, we'll ask you for uploads, that's entirely possible too. Just go with the directions you're getting at the time, even if the way they laid it out in the beginning was slightly different. There's something as part of the process that a lot of people didn't notice. It's called the certification. At some point in the process, there's a downloadable form that is a PDF that you can fill out in the PDF, but it does require a signature. And you're basically checking boxes that say yes to certain statements. It's actually 4 pages long. I've seen it. That is part of the application process. You might not have gotten that far. Just keep an eye out for this certification, the self-certification, in case you see words about it and say, what's that? I don't know what that is. It's a 4-page downloadable document that is part of the application process. Some of you might have seen it yet, some of you might not. Stage 2 is when you pass through the first gate and they offer you a grant. And at that time, they require a little more information. Please be aware that you're going to need to show proof of your business entity being in good standing. If you're a corporation, it could be your articles of incorporation. If you have a DBA, if you have a city business license, you're going to need that kind of a document to be able to upload to get your money. So just if you don't have any of this and you need to run and get in good standing, do it immediately, okay? Kind of like the local grants and loans that required you to be in good standing with the city that you operate within. And a lot of people didn't have a business license. So the award, it is true, it is not first come, first serve. And so believe that when they say it. Don't worry about whether your application's done yet. You will want to get it done by the January 13th deadline, but they are using different criteria to decide who's going to get this award. And I've summarized it here. Based on the impact to the area in which your business operates in, meaning our county or city, what kinds of restrictions did we have? What's the general economic impact of COVID in our area? In your industry, specifically, what your revenue loss looks like, and a special set of money to make sure that underserved communities, minority, women-owned businesses get their fair share of the grants. So these are the criteria that are going to be used, not who got their application in first. So keep that in mind. And they're pretty liberal about the way you can spend the money. There's almost nothing you can't spend the money on if it's a legitimate business expense. It's personal expenses where they don't want to see you spending the money. So let me give you some tips about this grant and the application. You have to use Google Chrome as a browser. By now, a lot of people notice this. I can't explain why, but it's just a fact. If you don't use Google Chrome, you will have even more problems than you've had. You need to have really high quality scans of your documents. They went out of their way to show us pictures of what's acceptable and what's not. So let's not let that be a barrier to you having a proper submission. Make sure your scans are professionally, they're not on your tablecloth, your hand's not in the picture, that kind of thing. When you do the online application, there's a couple of numbers you're going to need to know that I won't assume you have off the top of your head. You're going to need Q2 and Q3 revenue from 2019 and Q2 and Q3 revenue combined for 2020. So March 1st to September 30th, 2019, March 1st to September 30th, 2020. You need to know the revenue numbers for those 6-month periods year over year. That gets written in by hand in the application. So if you didn't get that far yet, run and go get those numbers ready, because they're going to ask you for that in the application. If you are not accepted or meaning offered a grant in the first round and you weren't rejected in the sense of being disqualified for some reason, you will automatically roll to the second round. You do not need to apply again. You should not apply again. Don't do anything to confuse the process. Stick with your first application. It will automatically roll. Have patience. It's been a bear of a week since it opened December 30th. It will eventually be fixed. My word is today. We'll see. Okay. SBDC has daily webinars at 11 a.m. And every day that webinar changes just a little to reflect the latest information we have. That's how SBDC does it. And we have access to a lot of really good data and contacts and updates. The link there is a direct link to a registration page for that webinar. Every day you can go multiple times. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And I recommend any webinars that we put out there going forward as PPP and EIDL rolls out, to make sure that you know the latest information, because it's not a static set of content. We're constantly updating it. So before we get to the new round of PPP, I want to at least be able to take a few questions before we lose sight of one grant and move on to the next one. So I'm trying to see if I can see what's in the chat here myself.
We do have one question here. Are educational institutions such as California Indian Nations College eligible to apply for the California Relief Grant?
I'd have to look at the fine print, but if it's a C3 or a C6, my understanding is yes.
Good morning,
But
Renee.
let me not say that with 100% certainty. So I will, either you can email me after, Mark, and I will go look it up, because I do have a way of looking it up. It's just the document is it's big. It would be hard for me to do it in real time. So
thank you.
let me make sure that I'm right about that. Okay. All right. PPP. If you got PPP the first time, you know a lot about PPP because you went through the process successfully, you got money, and you've been thinking about it, how to spend it and how to get forgiveness for it all along. There are people on this call, though, who either didn't go for PPP for their own reasons or were told they didn't qualify for PPP. Perhaps whoever told you you were not qualified was correct. But I just want to say I have met many people who didn't think they qualified, and when I worked with them one-on-one and did the analysis, they actually did. So I just want to start out by saying that if you didn't do PPP the first time because you thought you were not eligible, it's worth a second check before this PPP round opens, because you'd really be missing out on a good benefit for your small business. So I just want to put that out there. In general, the rules are the same as they were the first time you got PPP in terms of who qualifies and how the calculations are done around payroll and all of that. What's different about the second round is, in order to be entitled to a second round, you're going to have to show a 25% decline in revenue in any single quarter, 2019 versus 2020. That's pretty generous. Most businesses could find a quarter that they were down. Probably the second quarter would be my guess. But this is something, if you're interested in PPP, go pull your numbers now. Do Q1 through Q4, top line revenue, 19 versus 20, and do the comparisons and see if you're even eligible based on that, okay? There's language that says you have to have exhausted your first PPP funds. People have asked me about this. There's probably more fine print coming on what exactly exhausted means. But one thing you could imagine it means is that you literally spent it all. Whether you got it all forgiven or not is a different situation. But whether you literally spent it all versus half of it still sitting in the bank unused, and you're either going to have to give it back or roll it over into a loan. That's my guess from my initial read of what exhausted means. There were lots of businesses that could not and or did not spend it all, namely restaurants that got huge loans. And if you've got half of it left and we're going to give it back or roll it over to a loan, my guess is that that's why they have this language in there. But there's a little more guidance we're expecting, but just to tee it up so you have this in your mind. 501c3 and 6s are now eligible for PPP. That's a big deal for any C3s and 6s we have on the phone, as long as you don't do more than 15%, you don't have spend more than 15% of your money lobbying, okay? That means the chamber's eligible, Elder Love is eligible. I saw Shannon on the call. Let me help you figure out how in the world to calculate it, but that's very good news. The loan calculations are the same except for NASIC code 72, which is accommodations and food. Basically, restaurants, motels are being given 3.5 times their average monthly payroll instead of 2.5. They're giving bigger amounts of money to those businesses, which is also extremely welcomed, especially in the restaurant community. So everything else to apply is the same. It's just the multiplier is different. They made the loan more generous. Whatever you don't use, you can convert to a loan, a 5-year loan now instead of a 2-year loan. So that's a much better window for payback, and it's 1% with 10 months deferred. So let me just make a comment here. I know that a lot of people are not looking for debt. I totally understand that. But access to capital is tight, and it's going to be that way for a while. 5 years at 1% is a really, really, really favorable thing. And since it's hard to predict what's going to happen, if the reason you're not going for a PPP is because you are convinced that you can't get most of it for free, just do some thinking and do some analysis and talk to your financial advisors about whether you should be walking away from a 5-year 1% loan. Okay, so don't forget that component of PPP. So just want to put that out there. And they made it easier to spend it, having said that, okay? They widened the range of expenses that you could use PPP for, and that is retroactive to the first PPP. This is one of the reasons why at SBDC, our party line has been, don't rush to forgiveness. You have 10 months from the end of your 24-week period to apply for forgiveness. And a lot of banks and lenders weren't ready anyway, didn't want you to do it, but even some that opened up, our advice was just wait, because the rules keep changing and they keep changing in a more favorable direction for small businesses. So no reason to rush PPP forgiveness. And this is an example of one of the reasons. Now you can apply that 40% portion of PPP that goes to expenses on a wider range of expenses. And money is fungible. You can go back retroactively if you spent the money, but at the time you didn't think you spent PPP money. It doesn't matter. It's how you actually allocate it from a bookkeeping standpoint. So if you want to do a look back and you thought your forgiveness was going to look one way, and now you realize, ooh, maybe my forgiveness is going to look another way, that's something that we can work with you on one-on-one and kind of look at your papers and suss it out. And so I already naturally got to some of my PPP tips, but again, if you didn't think you qualified, check to be sure. If you don't think you can get total forgiveness, consider the value of a 5-year 1% loan. Don't rush the forgiveness process. Check now with your bank or whoever gave you the loan the first time, whether they are doing the second round of PPT. I'm getting word every day of lenders that are not doing it. If you had a bad experience with your bank or the bank of choice, you can go to any lender you want. And a lot of what we do at SBDC is help people find lenders for application. So we have a list of people that are going to do it. We know their processes, their customer service is good. If you want to change where you're getting it or your lender's not doing it, we can point you in the right direction. The written details on PPP round 2 is that it ends March 31st or when the money runs out. My guess is if there's money left over, they'll extend the deadline, but I don't know that the money's going to last till March 31st because they've made this a more generous offer, included more people, while they've excluded some other people. Publicly traded companies won't be able to get PPP. There'll be more money for the truly small businesses, so that's good. I wouldn't delay. I would do all the thinking and prep that you have to do now before this program opens. And you know, it could open within a week or two, probably closer to 2, but I think by 2 weeks from now, you're going to see this program open, if not a little sooner. So time to get ready. So let's see what is in the chat on PPP. Is there an adjustment business owners can make to their revenue if our customers aren't paying? Well, it's not revenue until you have the money. I mean, I guess it depends on cash versus accrual, but that's a receivable that offsets your revenue. So we probably have to have an offline conversation about that. And in fact, there is an excellent program that the Chamber's having on January 12th that I was going to bring up later, but they've got 3 different tax and accounting professionals who are going to talk about a wide range of issues for small businesses. And that's probably a better question for them. So sign up for the January 12th meeting, because I was going to plug it later, but every small business this year, most importantly, this may not be the year for you to do your taxes yourself. This may not be the year for you to just throw paperwork over the wall and not have an engaging conversation with the people that you do pay to help you. Make sure you're aware of everything you're eligible for in terms of business credits, tax credits, deferred payments, all kinds of things. And again, can't plug enough the January 12th, 7 a.m. Zoom that the Chamber's having with, I think, 5 people on the panel, if I remember correctly, possibly 4, but coming at all these issues from different angles. This is the year for you to know the most you've ever known about this topic. For forgiveness of PPP-1, we have a reduced full-time equivalent. Okay. FTE, the full-time, the head count element of PPP forgiveness is tricky, and the language keeps changing. The person that asked that question needs to work with me one-on-one, because it depends on a lot of things. Just know that there are some safe harbor provisions that allow you to not meet your FTE requirement and still get forgiveness, but it's a little convoluted. So that's an offline conversation we need to have. But that is a common question that a lot of people have. I paid out all the wages, but I don't have the head count that I was told is required for full forgiveness. And that's something we have to look at one-on-one, because there's some escape hatches for you, and they may actually make that even more favorable in the coming months than it already is, which is another reason not to apply for forgiveness yet. So take that conversation offline with me, the person that asked that question. Will do, thanks. Okay, great. So EIDL loan and grant. The EIDL loan, economic injury disaster loan, was the actual borrowed money that you got from the SBA, not from a bank. The bank, you got the money for PPP from a bank, even though that's still an SBA program. But the EIDL loan, you went right to the SBA, and the SBA signed loan documents with you, and you have a 30-year, 3.75%, unless you're a nonprofit, loan. And if you remember, part of that process had this $10,000 advance grant that everybody thought they were supposed to get $10,000, but then it ended up being $1,000 per employee. So the first thing I recommend to everybody I talk to is, if you don't know off the top of your head how much of that advance you got, or if you think you didn't get it, I've had people think they didn't get it, and then I say, go back and look at your deposits in your business bank account and see if there's a nice round number like 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 that you kind of overlooked. And people have actually found it, okay? So it would be a good idea if you applied for the EIDL loan, because applying for the EIDL loan was the only way you would have gotten part of the grant, to go through that application process. You could have been rejected for the loan, but got given the grant, but you had to apply. Go back and figure out what you got. If you already got $10,000, game over. There isn't another $10,000 for you. But if you got less than $10,000 the first time, you can top off to $10,000, or if you didn't get the $10,000, because the money did run out for the grant at some point, so some people got none of that. And some people never applied for the EIDL loan at all because they didn't want a loan, and then therefore they missed out on the grant. So a brand new applicant can go in and try to get the $10,000. But here's the caveat. Here's the 3 qualifications. And the first one is the one that nobody understands 100% yet. You're in a low income community. Okay. What's the definition of a low income community? There's pages and pages of language. There's links to websites where you can look up Census Bureau statistics. I've pulled a couple of the statistics that have been mentioned in the description of what a low-income community is, such as the poverty rate is greater than 20%, or the median income is less than 80% of the state median. Here's the deal. We don't know yet 100% what the low-income community qualifier is. Because it appears to be a deal breaker, if you are not, in a low-income community, this could mean that if we are not operating in a low-income community here, that nobody on this call can actually top off their EIDL grant or go after the 10,000. So unfortunately, I'm leaving you hanging on this one, but this is a key thing that we need more guidance on and should be getting within the next few days. Let's set that aside and assume the answer is yes, or perhaps they don't make that a requirement for everybody, but maybe they just set aside a certain portion of the funding for people that are in a low-income community. That's possible. You're going to need to show that your gross revenue in an 8-week period, year over year, has declined by 25%. You get to pick the 8-week period. So any 8 weeks you want, as long as it's post-COVID. So you can't pick January before COVID even hit, even if you had a really bad January. So from March 2nd to the end of the year, you could pick any 8-week period. And if you can show a 25% decline, you would be eligible to get the difference between what you got in the 10,000 or get the 10,000 outright if you didn't get any before. And of course, as with most, if not all, I'm not sure I've seen one loan or grant program that didn't require you to be in business prior to 2020. In some, it's February. In some, it's January. For the EIDL grant, it's January 31st. For some programs, it's a little later than that. But if you just bought your business this year, or if you weren't in business really prior to the start of 2020, chances are you're not going to qualify for any of these programs. Okay. I have not found one yet where you could. So probably some big questions versus total answers on the EIDL grant. And of course, the EIDL loan is still available. So again, I know people don't want to take on debt. It's one of the reasons I actually highlight the PPP loan, because 5 years is a decent term. It used to be 2 years. And a lot of people said, geez, 2 years. I don't know if I'm going to be back in business well enough to have paid this off in 2 years. 5 years is better. Some people don't like a 30-year loan, which is what the EIDL is. Just make sure that you don't need access to capital now, because when these programs go away and you're left with traditional lenders and small business lenders online that charge very high percentages, you're not going to have very attractive options. So I just want to make sure that you don't leave money on the table that you're going to wish that you went and got. You can always give the money back. You're always able to give the money back. And with EIDL and PPP, there's no penalty for giving it back early, which is not true of some lending situations you get into. So if there's no penalty to give it back early, you could have a cushion and sleep well, but still give it back if you decide you're not going to use it. So let me see what's in the chat real quick. Yeah, so if you got an EIDL loan and didn't get the advance, you would be eligible for the $10,000 pursuant to us understanding what low-income community means and whether it's a deal breaker or whether half of the money was set aside for people in a low-income community. It could be one, it could be the other. I'm not sure. Yay, fingers crossed. Okay, so there's a brand new program called the SOS Grant for Shuttered Venue Operators, Save Our Stage. I cannot go into it in depth because I had a headache after reading the paperwork on it. It was so confusing. So I just want you to know that if you're in the kind of industry where this might apply, this needs to be on your radar and you need to stay close to me or SBDC to see how this pans out. One of the key things here is if you are in the venue operator definition, live venue operator, promoter, theatrical producer, live performing arts organization, talent rep, movie theater, or museum, I've already notified some of the local museums that this is likely to be something they qualify for. You cannot get this grant and a PPP and another PPP. If you already got a PPP, they don't ding you for that. But you can't pursue a PPP in this round and get this grant. So if you're even remotely connected to these industries, I would hold off on getting a PPP until you know whether or not you qualify, because they are giving away quite a lot of money in this program. It's going to be a mad dash to get the money because there's a lot of Broadway theaters, local movie theaters, museums. There's going to be a lot of people scrambling for this money, and the calculations are very complicated, but it's a generous grant. There's a lot of money that can be gotten. I've seen numbers like 45 to 70% of lost revenue from being shut down, but the requirements are very stiff as well. You need to show between 70 and 90% drop in revenue, which, a lot of venue operators would because they're completely shut down. So this is a tricky one, but if you are remotely in this industry, and there's about 6 pages of detail underneath bullet 3, the descriptions of what qualifies as this industry. Do you take tickets? Do you charge for tickets? I mean, really, it goes on and on. But if you're even remotely connected to this, stay close to us and plan to understand this better before you make a move to get PPP. And then also just so you don't miss it. So if you think it applies to you, possibly let's talk offline and get connected so that the minute we know more, we can explain it. And I don't know if anybody on the call today is in this. Yeah, venue operations are a portion of your business. So I don't know. I'm concerned if you do a lot of things and like you do tours, but then you do something else and you're not going to meet the 70 to 90% drop because you operate under the same business umbrella. I don't know. Talk to me offline and then I'll go through the 10 pages of detail with you and we'll see what the additional advice is coming. And because this is a brand new program that doesn't remotely resemble anything they've done so far, it's going to take longer to figure out how to do it. So whereas EIDL and PPP are going to open back up forthcoming week or two, worst case 3, but I don't even think that long. There's no way that this program is going to be ready by then. There's a lot for them to figure out. So there's time to understand it. The caveat being you can't get another PPP and this. So that's I don't think the PPP money is going to run out in the first week, just to ease your concerns about that. But this needs to be better understood. So final comments before we really open it up totally. Get with your CPA to ensure you receive all the tax businesses to small businesses due to COVID. Please attend that meeting on the 12th if you can for the chamber, or listen to the recording after, because I am 100% sure based on the panel I've seen that they're going to cover everything. And these are professionals. I just play one on TV. I am loosely familiar with what I need to understand to help you with the things I help you with, but I'm not a CPA and I'm not a tax professional. And the people on that Zoom panel are. So really, really encourage you to do that. Don't leave money on the table as a small business. Make sure you know everything you're entitled to. Stay close to SBDC. I think the chamber is probably going to have another meeting like this as soon as there's enough updates to warrant it. I would bet within a week, worst case 10 days. SBDC is having those daily webinars too, but I think this is something that we should probably reconvene on a fairly regular basis just to make sure everybody can ask their questions and understand the latest. One great thing about SBDC is, again, they do these every day. They know a lot, but it's hard to get a question answered because there could be 1,000 people on those calls. So I'm willing to do this again. I'm sure Deb's willing to do this again for the chamber and everybody as new information comes out. Register with SBDC. There's no cost to you. We can help you with so many things. We don't get paid based on whether you register or not. It's your tax dollars hard at work. So I'm going to make that final pitch. And there's my email address. Email me whatever you want to email me. If I can't help you, I'll find a person who can. So with that, I'll stop and let Pam take it over.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lisa. I totally appreciate that. I just wanted to say thank you as well to Deborah Glickman from the City of Palm Desert. We so appreciate the both of you taking your time out of your morning to share this really valuable information. And please, everybody in the audience, please remember that I am able to send you the PowerPoint presentation that Lisa has provided today. Deborah, if you would like me to be able to share your PowerPoint, please email it over to me, and I can get that to our audience as well. Stay tuned for the next available slot that we will book to get everybody updated on these ever-evolving grants and loans. So thank you, Lisa, for offering that. We really appreciate the SBDC in doing so much for small businesses at this time. Now, if anybody has any other questions, would you kindly put them in the chat box or unmute yourself at this time?
So Pam, just a reminder about our breakfast at 7 o'clock on January 12th. We have Jenna Allman, we have Kelly Cox, and we have Sabby Jonathan. Each one of them will be speaking for about 10 to 12 minutes, and then we will take questions. And anybody that wants to is invited. You don't have to be a member of the Palm Desert Chamber of Commerce. Our goal here is to be working and helping businesses with everything that's going on with the PPE, with the EIDL loans, with taxes, whatever it might be. We're here to do what we can to get businesses back on their feet and be able to take advantage of any tax advantages that are out there. So thank you for all showing up.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John. So if you'd like to register for the January 12th breakfast, please visit pdacc.org and click on the events tab. You will find the breakfast there and you can register for it right there. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions that you think of following this, please just email them over to ceo@pdacc.org and we'll get you in touch with the proper people. So thank you, and I hope to see you all January 12th.